Paranormal King Radio Network, bringing you the best paranormal hosts and guests. Bringing you the best paranormal shows and features. Playing the top musical artists from around the world. Paranormal King Radio Network. With the best paranormal hosts and guests. The best in paranormal shows and features. Playing the best musical artists from around the world. Paranormal King Radio Network. The paranormal will never be the same.
You are listening to Paranormalities Ponderings with the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal Team. Brought to you by the Paranormal King Radio Network and hosted by Frank Lee. Join us for the next hour as we discuss ghosts, spirits, hauntings, and otherworldly phenomena that has yet to be explained in hopes of finding answers. This show is meant to be a resource for those of you who, like us, seek to find answers to the unknown. We hope you find it informative and enjoy the show. Once again, thank you for listening.
Welcome to Paranormalities and Ponderings. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Frank Lee. And I've got with me tonight Donald Davis. He is our operations manager and also a lead investigator. How are you doing tonight, Donald?
I'm doing great. Frank, how are you doing?
I can't complain. Now, tonight we've got kind of a different sort of show in mind for everybody. Usually we're talking to all of the experts in the field, and we're geared more toward paranormal investigators, and we're teaching them how to, giving them tips how to improve their investigations and really advance their techniques. But tonight we've got a little bit of something different going. Tonight, it's not for the experienced people. It's for the newbies, for the paranormal enthusiasts who maybe have never been on an investigation before, or maybe only been on one or two, or maybe just think that they would like to go on one. So
exactly, we're going to give them a bunch of good information to use, and just a lot of info to sink in.
Right, exactly. That's So that's what this is geared for. It's getting close to Halloween. There's a lot of people that will be wanting to go out, go ghost hunting, go get a good thrill in. So we're here to bring a show to help people do that safely and successfully. So hopefully, if you're tuned in, you're listening, you get something out of the show tonight that you can use and hopefully remember. Or if you're a new investigator, or maybe you're an experienced investigator, you might get some tip that you might have overlooked. Who knows? So
that's right. They may hear a tip that we use that they might want to start using in their investigation. You never know.
Right. And tonight I had to say it's just me and Donald. We originally planned on having the whole team. We've got Pink Floyd in the chat room there, and we've got a couple of our members of the team that are sick, and a couple others that have family members in the hospital. So I think everyone is kind of under the weather. I myself, you may be able to tell, I'm a little bit hoarse tonight. So that,
Yeah, it seems to be that way. There's a couple of my coworkers, they're also under the weather. It just seems to be something going around here lately. And I hope everyone gets to feeling better out there.
right. So that's one thing that we do want to talk about, actually, while we're talking about the weather and talking about being sick and everything else, is safety. That when you do go out, always keep an eye on the weather.
Right, yes.
That's one thing that you I haven't seen what the forecast is supposed to be like for the next few weeks, but that is something you always want to keep in mind. Try to plan that ahead before you go. Have a backup plan, especially if you're here somewhere like we are in the South, where one day it's
Right.
freezing, the next day it's a heat wave, and the next day monsoon season sets in.
Exactly. Well, all these afternoon thunderstorms that like to brew up around here, and they carry some tornadoes with them a lot of times. So you definitely need to be aware of the environment and plan around that.
Absolutely. And because not only can you get caught out in the weather and that particular damage, but it can cause you to get sick, and you don't want that. So that's something to consider, and there are a number of environmental hazards to consider. Because if
Right.
it's raining, if it's windy, there could be dust blowing, there could be, you know,
Oh yeah, and you're definitely gonna stir up dust in a when you're doing an investigation because you're walking around, you're setting up equipment, and these old buildings that these people are going to be going into that people haven't been into in a while. There's a lot of hazards in these old homes that you got to be aware of for your own safety and your team as well.
absolutely, and definitely be aware of things like black mold that can.
Yes, yes, that's probably an investigator's number one concern is the black mold. So now, just because you walk into a building and you see mold on the wall doesn't mean that it's deadly or a poisonous mold. That's not the case. There are several different types of mold, but the black mold normally will they give off toxins, and which is not good for your respiratory system. So that's one of the hazards that you've got to be aware of when you go investigate an old building.
Right, and Pink is in the chat room. She actually made a very good point. Also, is to always dress appropriately. No shorts, no
Yes,
flip flops.
absolutely.
you know, cover
Right.
cover yourself, protect your feet, especially.
From insects. Most buildings you're going to go into is vandalized, and it's got glass on the floor. It's got nails sticking out of boards, so you want to wear, a boot or a good tennis shoe, long sleeve shirts at least. Try to, because the mosquitoes could be terrible out there. You never know, and that's why it's good. You should always do a pre-investigation before you go at night, and so you can see all the hazards, see if there's any structural damage to the building that you need to be aware of, because the last thing you want to do is 1 o'clock in the morning you lean up against a post in the middle of the building and here the roof caves in on you. So that's, yeah, and if you'd have walked through it during the daytime, you'd have saw that it was broken or it was about to fall down, and you could have based your decision to whether you want to continue or not there.
Absolutely, that's a very good point. Always scout the location out, preferably in the daylight, where you know the hazards ahead of time. And and a lot of people, this is one of my personal pet peeves. A lot of people tend to think that just because a building is old or abandoned, that it's got to be haunted, and
Right, yes.
that is not the case. And if a building looks like it's about to fall in, it's not worth it. Don't go in there.
It's not. It really isn't. Especially, you're in there in total darkness a lot of the times, and And what happens if something does happen? You need to get out of there quickly. You can't see. So all you have are a flashlight. So you need to be aware of your surroundings at all times while you're in there. So, and yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right about the building not being haunted just because it's old and sitting there. But they sure do look fun to want to go investigate, don't they?
Yes, they do. And that and something else to consider as well, especially somewhere like we are here in Alabama. If you're somewhere that has a milder or a warmer climate, like the South, somewhere like that, I I seen a snake out just 3 days ago. So
Oh
there,
yeah, here I know. Here it is October and the snakes are still crawling. I know. Well, I just saw one a couple days ago myself. It's funny. It was crossing the road right, half a mile from my house here.
so
So that's absolutely something you got to watch out for. Or animals inside the
mhm.
house. While you're doing your pre-investigation, while you're walking through, look for animal tracks in the dust. Look for a nest that one of the animals could have built, and take note of that because there could be a raccoon in there later on that night. You never know.
Absolutely. And if some of you may have seen the picture that I shared in the
That was
event
hilarious.
on Facebook, the it said the ghost hunter said if someone is here, make a noise, and it showed a picture of a raccoon, and it said, "So I knocked a box over, and you should have seen them run." So
You're right. Yes.
and I put the caption up there. You don't want to be those guys. So that comes to educating yourself to knowing the location, but definitely watch out for animals because you can encounter
Right. And not only that, if you're like me and scared and petrified of wasp, how yeah, you walk into a wasp nest and it's pitch black dark. I mean, Frank, have you ever disturbed a wasp nest at night?
them. Unfortunately, I have.
Oh, you have. Well, you just totally blew my punchline right there. You were supposed to say no. It took me 10 minutes to think of a joke after that line, and you just totally blew it for me.
Oh no. Well, no, I can always
Yeah, you
lie
sure
about
did. No, heck, you done told the truth now. We got to carry on.
it. So
But,
well, if it's any
but
consolation, I'm still trying to forget, and that's been about 15 years ago.
yeah, I'm sure it wasn't pleasant, was it?
No, no.
You can't see them coming, and which actually it was funny because I was wondering after when I sat here thinking something witty to say about Wasp Night. I actually Googled that, and it actually said have. So that was a little tip. That means I can actually duck and. So I think that was a fun fact to have right there. See that well at night.
Well, and that actually brings up another very important safety tip, and that is, there are so many people that are allergic to bees, wasps, yellow
Exactly.
jackets.
Yes.
So be aware of that. If you are allergic, be sure to take it. If you carry one of the EpiPens or something like
Right.
that, definitely
And it wouldn't
have
and it
that
wouldn't
with you.
hurt to have a bit and it wouldn't hurt to have a Benadryl or some kind of allergy pill just in case, because this mold and dust is going to irritate your sinuses anyway. So you don't want to be stuffy sitting there trying to talk into your digital recorder.
That's right. We've had to do it a few times, and it never turns out well, especially when you're trying to review the audio. Um, and which something else along those lines too is always carry a good first aid kit. You're stumbling around in the dark. I mean, yes, you've got flashlights, but you still can't see everything, and the potential to
Right.
trip, fall, run into things, get scratched,
Yes.
cut.
Exactly, and have a first aid kit on you. That is, that's one of the things. Alcohol pads, gauze, tape, things like that. Just for minor first aid issues.
Right, and if you, you know, if you don't have one already, buy one before you go ghost hunting, and even if you don't have to use it, which hopefully you don't, while you're ghost hunting, keep it in your car. You need one in there anyway.
Absolutely right.
So those, those are things to look out for, especially, and not only if you're in a building, but a lot of people like to go into cemeteries. And
Yeah.
cemeteries, you can encounter snakes, spiders, holes, lots of trip hazards, and something that many people don't think about, when you're in a cemetery and you trip, it it has potential to get really nasty really quickly, because when you when you consider it, if there's a hole, you're typically within just a few feet of another large stone object protruding from the ground for you to bash your head on.
And you're
So,
right. And not only that, cemetery, and a lot of listeners have been to some where you actually see the ground, and you're out there at night in the dark, and you don't actually see it till it's too late. And there you are, down in a hole.
absolutely. So that's always something to keep in mind. And I know we've spent about 15 minutes just talking about nothing but safety, but it's imperative that take care of yourself.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. That's number one that all teams need to put first is the safety of them and their team.
Right. And something that we can't stress enough is, you know, spend the money, have a good flashlight. Have have a good flashlight, a good first aid kit, not only for the ghost hunting, but you need these things in your vehicle anyway. So it's common sense, it's dual purpose, and you'll
Absolutely.
right. So it's money well spent. I just had a good question. What safety shoes do I recommend? Um, I the My particular favorite type of shoes to wear to an investigation is just a regular type work boot, but they're actually combat boots, but that's what I'm used to wearing. Um, it's all in what you're comfortable with, something that's going to protect your feet well, but at the same time something that's not going to throw you off balance, and something that you can be sure is not going to come untied or anything like that. I will definitely say that.
Right. And I agree, but I prefer just a good running shoe because if I see something, I say I'm not going to run, but you never know. So I may have to get out of there quick. So
Right.
I
But
want
well, I'm
something
trained.
light.
I'm trained to run in combat boots, so it balances out either way.
There you go. Your military experience definitely helps out.
Right. So, so those are definitely a few things to consider, but uh, we can't stress enough to be safe. But let's talk about a few tools. You can spend as much on ghost hunting as you want to.
Oh yes, I mean I can sit here and name off $1,500 worth of equipment that I want to have right now, and not even be a drop in the bucket to what I really want. So
Absolutely, that. It's one of those things that every time you get the newest, latest, greatest toy, they come out with something a little bit better, and our
I know, yeah.
so and especially if you like to tinker with things, it's like the things that you want to tinker with and put together are never cheap, because I was talking to you about the project with the oscilloscope, and
Right, yeah.
uh, to anyone listening, if you've ever priced an oscilloscope, just a decent one is going to set you back several $100s. So those, it can be expensive, but definitely invest in a good flashlight. That's something everybody needs, regardless of what you do. Um, the other equipment you don't necessarily need if you're just doing it just for a hobby, just to go out a couple times. You know, a
Right, yeah. You can find a good cheap digital recorder at the Walmart, a Radio Shack. Sometimes you can find them at CVS, Walgreens. My very first investigation I went on was with a cheap $10 digital recorder.
hmm
We had a couple other audio. I think we had our smartphones. I believe it was our smartphones that we were recording with as well. So, and that was something real cheap, and you can plug right into your computer, load up, and listen to it. So, $10, we had a good time with it, and take pictures and video with your iPhone, so or Android or whatever smartphone you have, and you'll have an excellent time.
absolutely. And there's a good point coming up from the chat room as well, is invest in good batteries and lots of batteries. You will go through.
Lots of batteries.
We,
Lots of batteries.
the running joke with the team is we go through more batteries than 12 families with toddlers, because
We definitely keep Energizer, Duracell, Panasonic. We keep all those in business for sure.
right, because that if you get on a lot of these really active locations, you'll find your batteries will drain for no reason. We've ran into that quite a few times, and you can't keep this stuff powered up, and so you'll definitely need a good supply of batteries. Uh,
Exactly. That just happened to us. Just what was it, last week, Frank? I think it was. Last week,
Absolutely.
it's 2 weekends ago, I think, and we were out. Just got there, replenished the batteries before we left. Got out to the site. 10 minutes into it, we had to change batteries and everything. So it was that started off the night pretty good.
Absolutely, and we do have a good stock tip to buy stock in Energizer and Duracell. Um,
There you go. Our stock tip of the week right there. Energizer and Duracell.
and now Kat from the chat room brings up a very good point that about Amazon and eBay for equipment, and
Absolutely, yes.
those are good
There,
sources.
yeah, there is absolutely nothing wrong with buying used ghost hunting equipment. Absolutely nothing wrong. I've bought two or three of pieces of equipment from Amazon, and I've always gotten a good product. I've gotten what I looked at on the computer screen, and there's absolutely nothing wrong. It works great, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying it off the internet.
Right, and and Ross actually brought up a good point too about rechargeable batteries, and that they're not worth it. Something else about,
Uh,
not only are they expensive, but
right.
if you look at the way that most of the rechargeable batteries actually operate, they, of course, you do have the convenience of being able to recharge them, but they don't.
Right.
They tend to not hold their charge as long.
They do not. My very first infrared light I bought for my when I got a video camera was I bought it and a infrared light, and it had the rechargeable battery pack on it. Well, you got about 45 minutes of infrared light, then you had to charge it for 30 minutes. And about two investigations of that, and I got tired of it, and I didn't like that. So you can actually convert some of those battery packs into using your regular batteries. You can get all the stuff to do it with right there at Radio Shack. You can change it to double A, triple A, 9 volt, whatever you want to change it to. And but you're absolutely right. I don't recommend, my personal opinion. I don't recommend the rechargeable packs at all.
Right.
Plus, you don't ever know if you're going to be in a building that has power.
Absolutely, and there is that overlap time. Are you going to be out of batteries while you're waiting on these others to charge
Right,
up.
and 99% of the time, that's when that full-bodied apparition is going to appear in the middle of your charging time.
you,
As you know, so
there was a discussion we were having just the other day about how many times you wish you had the camera rolling.
oh, I know it, man. It's if you sit down and think about it, it's like I am a terrible cameraman. So
But
yeah, I can't catch anything. The minute I set it down and look up, there's something staring me right in the face. It's like, come
right,
on, you're doing that on purpose.
right, and I believe they do sometimes just to toy with us. To be honest
I
with you,
think so too. Absolutely. Why can't they have some fun? We're doing it too.
right? Well, I know I would if I were in their position. I won't lie about it. Um, Now I did get a
You
good
right.
question. I did get a really good question from the chat about my opinion on the Ovilus. Now, me personally, and this is, I'm putting the disclaimer here. This is just my personal opinion. I'm very skeptical of devices like the Ovilus for the simple fact that it takes a it's I'm I'm not quite sold on it because there's so many variables for it to have that word bank and it put those random words out there. I can't help but wonder if you get in. I understand the principles behind it being the changes in the electromagnetic fields and the environmental changes are supposed to be able to, that a spirit is supposed to be able to manipulate it through using those changes to produce the words from a pre-programmed database. But
Right.
my question is, if you come across a natural geomagnetic or electromagnetic um, fluctuation, could it cause a false positive? That's why I tend to be kind of skeptical of those.
Right. I understand, and I understand your point as well. But me, on my opinion is that I think that, and not every. I'm just going to use, for example, an SB7 spirit box. There's a
Hmm.
lot of controversy over this spirit box. How do you know it's not radio? That's the biggest question it brings up. And I personally use one.
Hmm.
And I've read in a bunch of groups that we have on Facebook how they've used it one time in a year and a half,
Hmm.
and you can't learn a piece of equipment doing it that way.
Absolutely.
If you have a piece of equipment, a new piece of equipment, you've got to use it and continue to use it and continue to use it. And with the spirit box, I can personally tell the difference between radio and a response.
Hmm.
The
Absolutely.
sound is different, but that's from me using it for 3.5 years. To someone that is just starting to use it, everything will sound probably the same to them. There's a different tone. The undertones behind all the static is what I listen for, and there's a difference in that between radio and an actual response.
Hmm.
And the spirit box, I have gotten complete sentences on. So,
Hmm.
and when you're scanning radio frequencies that quick, you cannot get a complete sentence off of "Do you want to go?" How can you actually get that? There's not four radio channels back to back
Right.
saying those four words. You know what I mean? It can't happen.
Well, and to add to that, sometimes you go out on a location and you'll have swear words come through. If and you have to think about this logically. If if you consider, the like the SB7 works off of AM and FM bands, and you
Right.
consider the FCC guidelines. Well, the FCC guidelines, if someone, if they drop the S word or drop an F bomb, something like that, that station gets fined.
Right. Absolutely.
Thousands of dollars per instance. So they're not going to let that slip out over the airwaves. You hear that coming through the SB7. There's it's very unlikely you're hearing that from a radio broadcast.
Right. Yes.
And
And
some
another good point to bring up about the SB7 with your radio, there are going to be locations where you're going to get radio almost all the way through, and in instances like that, I won't use it because you have way too much contamination that way.
Mhm.
And then you'll go to a house 3 blocks away from there, and you won't have a single bit of radio, complete static, which doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened. And those are the great investigations where you have no radio feedback whatsoever. And so,
Right. And
but
if someone is fortunate enough to have one of the SB7s with them, something to always remember it is to factor in how rural or how metro their location may be, and to keep in mind that per the FCC guidelines, after dark, AM channels have to lower their broadcast strength, while
right,
FM frequencies are allowed to boost their broadcast strength. So if it's after dark, you're getting interference on the FM band, you can flip over to the AM, and you're not as likely to get radio interference.
right, you're absolutely right. And actually, it was an AM band that I captured the complete sentences.
Hmm.
So and we switch back and forth on our investigations. It's just according to how, like we just talked about the pareidolia,
Hmm.
and actual responses. If we're not getting any on the FM station, we'll flip over to the AM station for a little bit, try it, and then if nothing comes through there, then we move on to a different tactic.
Absolutely, and something else that was brought up in the chat is about when they were talking about the ovulus. Someone had mentioned that the ovulus was basically like the cell phone apps, and I will say there are very few, not 99% of the cell phone apps out there. I do not trust. Um, because most of them are designed by people that aren't even in the paranormal field, and anybody can
Correct.
design them. Most of them come in big bold letters for entertainment purposes only, and
Right.
I would not trust those. I mean, and you consider the phone's hardware itself. Um, Now, one that we have been testing on some of our recent investigations is the EchoVox system. And now we have got some fairly compelling results with EchoVox. And if anyone would like to spend the money, it is cheaper than buying the SB7 if you were going to buy something like that. It is
Right.
it is put out by Big Beard Studios. A lot of people know the developer. Danny Big Beard is what most people know him by, and he actually is in the paranormal community. Um, he really really knowledgeable in audio, and it the way that the EchoVox system works is it doesn't use the phone's it doesn't try to use the phone's hardware other than its microphone. And with the microphone, it takes it and basically runs it through an echo chamber and gives a few samples just to give it a little bit of noise in theory for the spirits to use to put words together. Now, while we've been testing it, we've picked up accents, we've picked up different languages. I mean, we've had some fairly compelling results with it. So I would
And and,
I would
and
say
I
give it a
agree with you.
try.
I agree with yeah, I agree with you, Frank. We've gotten some pretty good responses out of it. But I am like you said, it's an app, so that's something we have got to definitely continue to test out and
Hmm.
see and test it up against other pieces of equipment to see how verifiable I guess it is. So
Hmm.
I agree with you. And when we used it just the other night and got names out of it, and me personally, I need to research it a little bit more before I kind of give it a thumbs up to,
Right.
use all the time and actually present it as possible evidence. But it is a great app. It's really it's and you can hear the words clearly.
Hmm.
So it kind of it has me kind of swaying to that side, but I'm not quite ready to jump over that fence yet on it. But I am interested in using it some more.
Hmm. Absolutely. And we're we'll continue working with it. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with trying new pieces of equipment. No, nothing wrong at all. So you're going to have skeptics in just about everything that you do, and every piece of equipment that you use, every camera that you snap a picture with.
oh
So
yes.
if you worry about all the skeptics out there, you're not going to have any fun doing it, and it's just going to be a drag. So just go out there, have fun with it, try new things. As long as you don't present it to clients and the media or whatever as actual evidence, then you'll be okay.
Right. And as far as the ghost boxes, the spirit boxes, as far as they go, they're they're great to use, but it's still hard to beat a regular EVP or electronic voice phenomena, where
Exactly.
it's nothing but a recorder, and you hear silence, then you hear a voice come through. You ask a question, you hear something else. That is definitely the hardest to dispute.
You're
And
absolutely right.
we'd mentioned phones earlier. We've actually used our phones. If you have a decent quality recorder on your phone, you can put your phone in airplane mode so that it doesn't transmit and receive, so that it doesn't interfere with any other equipment that you have. And sometimes that can be a useful tool. And it always works in a pinch as well if you need it. We've
Absolutely right, because you have three of the things that you need on an investigation: audio, video, um, and the light on it as well. I
yeah.
had three just a second ago, but I forgot the third one. Sorry about that.
So, and speaking of cameras, if now something to keep in mind with if you use the camera on your phone while you're out, they do seem to be more prone to capturing orbs, and you tend to.
Oh, don't you shouldn't say the O word.
I went there, and
Everybody's hair just raised on the back of their neck when you said that.
I said it,
Uh,
and boo.
right, I know you're gonna be lashed tomorrow.
Right. So and that is why you've got to really consider what orbs most likely are.
Right,
If
and
sometime hold a phone. What next time you're outside at night, take your cell phone, hold the camera up, turn it where your flash is on, and just hold it out and just look through the preview lens and look and see how many orbs you see through the lens, and then you'll watch and you'll see them fly away, and then you'll watch the insect fly back around. And or if you ever want a really good orb picture, slap a couch cushion or something like that. Which
right.
so those are things to consider, and those digital cameras and cell phone cameras are
Yeah,
especially vulnerable to them.
right. Now, we're not sitting here saying that every single orb you capture is a dust orb or moisture or lens flare or those every time you get something. We're not saying that at all. I mean, I'd say 95% of the stuff that you do see in pictures and videos are probably dust and moisture. But there are those certain few that has, a different body to them.
Hmm.
It has motion, a different motion to it. Those are possible activity.
The biggest thing to consider with something like that is the circumstances around it. At that same time, did you get a temperature fluctuation? Did you get any type of activity? Did you get, say, a reading? Did you get anything else to back it up?
Right.
Or was it just an orb?
Just something, right, right. It was just something just kind of floating by the camera at that particular time, right? And if you've been in the paranormal field 5 minutes, you know about the O word. So
Right,
it's it's very controversial right now.
right. And Kat in the chat room brought up a good point that humidity causes orbs also,
Oh yes,
and that's very
absolutely.
true. As you're out, if you're out later in the night or earlier in the morning, you'll see as you see the dew start forming, you'll start seeing more orbs turn up in pictures. You'll see mist turning up in pictures, and what you're actually getting 99.9% of the time is that moisture as
Right,
the dew point drops.
right.
So that's definitely something to bring up. And typically your more high end cameras can usually take care of that a little better for you. But of course, if you're just a hobbyist, you're probably not going to want to put that kind of money out for a camera to go ghost hunting with. So just keep that in mind as you go.
And since we've been talking about the iPhones, I just saw on Facebook to where iPhones now have a FLIR
Hmm.
instrument that you can get for the iPhone that you can actually see heat sensor. It's heat sensitive, FLIR.
Right, and this is not. And I know a lot of people that are hearing this are thinking, "Oh God, we've seen this app before. It doesn't work." No, this is not an app that you download.
And no, it's not. It's
This,
an attachment to your phone.
hmm this
And
is, yeah, and it's only, I think, what was it, about three? It was three and some change, which is expensive, but compared to a full FLIR system,
exactly, yeah, you're looking at 15 to $20,000 for a good FLIR system, to where this is $250 to $400.
right? So maybe if you're wanting to experiment but don't want to dump out several grand on a FLIR system, that may be the route to go.
Exactly.
Something else is, of course, every paranormal investigator you see has a EMF detector. And the most popular one that most pick is either the tri-field meter or the K2 meter or the Mel meter. And the Mel meter is going to run you about $60. The or excuse me, the K2 will run you about $60. Mel meter, depending on which model, you're looking between 100 to 250, depending on which goodies you get added on to it. Tri-field meter, you're looking about 120 to 150. So most people don't want to dump that out on just a hobby. So,
Right.
and a good question is the difference in the Mel meter models. There's a basic Mel meter. The Mel 8704R is that's the oldest version of the Mel meter. That it has the temperature probe on it, and it's a single axis, or it simply senses the EMF in one direction. Then you can get the one
Correct.
that you see a lot of times on TV that has the telescoping antenna that will also put off its own electromagnetic field that works similar to the REM pods that you see. You'll see it with a
Right.
light bar across the top that alerts if
Yep.
something breaks that field. Those get to be around 250, more in that range. And I'm I'm trying to remember what the newest addition to it is that they've just put on. Um,
I can't think of it either. They also have a new spirit box as well. It's the SB11 now,
hmm
and doing just a little bit of research on it, I think I would really like to invest in one. I'd like to give it a try.
hmm Um, but you can get a very simple EMF detector. It if you don't want to spend if you don't want to spend 50 $60, you can look online. You can get the ELF zone. It's a very basic meter. You can get those sometimes for less than $10. If you
Yep, sure
under
can.
under $20, you can get. There's one that I'm trying to remember who it is that makes it. I I believe it's from CE Technologies. There's one with very basic, but it does have digital display on it, like $15 or so. Or if you want to go a little bit better than that, go spend 5, 10, $15, get you a compass. It does the same exact thing, because a compass will react to electromagnetic fields. That's what it does.
Yeah, sure will. You're absolutely right.
So that's that's just something to think about there. Um,
And if you get serious about the doing the paranormal investigations, it adds up quick. So that's why we recommend to not spend a whole lot of money when you go out, especially if this is your first investigation. You have things right there around you that you can use, and it won't cost you hardly anything.
that and that's very true. If you're just going out, say you're just getting started. This is a hobby for you. This may be something you're going to do once or twice a year. Keep your toolkit very basic. Keep you a first aid kit. Have you a camera, a recorder. Um, get you a compass or a very basic EMF detector. A couple of good flashlights. And
Yes.
and you're looking at spending less than $50 for the whole kit here.
And a whole night of memories from scaring the poo out of your friends.
Right, absolutely. And
So
and I do
a
have a
cheap
question.
night.
And I do have a question from Chad about the digital long range thermometers. They can be they can come in handy in some situations. Most of the tools that you'll see used in the paranormal are not made for the paranormal. Your digital thermometer, or the laser thermometers like you're talking about, those are mostly used by fire departments. Your FLIR was, initially used by military and by fire departments. Your, if you look at your EMF detectors, that's an electrician's tool. If
Yes.
if you think about it, there's so many things that we've adapted for our use. So sometimes you can save a lot of
that we
money.
use every single day. Yeah.
Right. So you can save a lot of money by avoiding the term ghost hunting when you're looking at this. Look at the hardware store. Look at Walmart. Um, if you go on YouTube, look up Scream Freak 79, and that is Mike St. Clair's YouTube channel. He's with Viper Paranormal. He does the one video called "The Ghost of Walmart," and he goes through all of the ghost hunting gear you can get in there for under $20. And he has tons of videos that are talking about things like we're pointing out. I definitely recommend checking out his channel before you go hunting as well.
Absolutely, he has got some great videos on there, especially if you're just getting into it, and it'll be a lot of information for you to be great, or useful on your investigation, and to get to know your equipment a little better as well.
Something else to bring up is the when you go out, don't go trespassing. You know.
That's right. We should actually, that should have been the first thing we actually said. This whole time we've been assuming they have asked permission to get on this property.
Right, right. You don't want to. If you're in there, you want to be in there legally. So that's definitely a major priority.
It is, and it's taken real seriously. I actually read in the paper right here in our hometown that there was some people arrested in town up here in the old hospital for trespassing, and we've been in there investigating a few years back, and now the place has just gotten so bad that they won't allow you in there, and some people snuck in there and they were arrested. And not only does it look bad on you, it looks bad on the paranormal community as well, because if you don't respect someone else's property, they will not allow anyone else in there.
Right. And something else to consider. And if someone has maybe broken into a place, snuck into a place before you went in there, maybe they went in unnoticed, took something, damaged something, but you get caught in there. Who's going to be blamed for that damage or that missing item?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. You are.
So that's always something to consider. And definitely never, ever, never, ever, ever, never go alone. And,
Absolutely not.
And if you're a lot of places, you may have weak cell phone reception. So even if you are going with someone else or even a group, let someone that's not at that location know where you're going.
Right. It's because what we were talking about earlier, the building could actually fall over on you if you're in an old building and there it is, the whole group trapped, and no one knows you're gone. No one knows where you're at.
Right. That's something to think about, because quite honestly, there's a lot of physical dangers you're going to meet before you run into paranormal dangers out there.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Take care of the conditions you can control.
Absolutely. And when you're going out, be sure to document your experiences. Keep a notebook with you. Write down what you see, what you hear.
Absolutely. Write down times as well, because during your review, you can go back and look at your notes that you've taken on the investigation and match that up with your audio. And a lot of times you will actually catch EVPs that you may not have heard the first time around.
Right. I tell people all the time, one of the best paranormal tools you can take is a 99-cent notepad.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
So, and always be respectful, not only of the living, but of the dead. When you go out there, I've seen, and this is one of my pet peeves, you see on these TV shows, they'll go out there, they'll try and provoke these spirits, they'll try and taunt them and everything else. If you want to have good results, don't do that. If you do manage to stir up activity using provocation, you're not going to like the activity that you stir up.
Exactly.
But
and a good example of that, Frank, was when we went a couple weeks ago, and instead of us sitting there telling it to show itself and you're weak and all that, we pulled up a chair and invited it to sit down with us.
Mm-hmm. And just doing that, we were using the EchoVox app, and we were trying it. We go to to a person's house that they've been seeing a few things in their yard. So they're sitting outside. They're showing us where they've been seeing it. They've got a fire going. It's kind of chilly out, and we so we go around and we're standing by the fire. There's a table close to it. We set up the Echo Vox on the table close to the fire, right next to the coffee. And we basically invite it to come up and have some coffee with us, sit around the fire. And we got instant responses. And you remember when I asked if it wanted some coffee? And we got that clear yes, that would be nice.
Yes, I remember that. That was a real good response from that. We also got one of the owners' names called out, so it was good.
Right.
And all we did was just pull up a chair and talk nice to it.
Right. I said, would you like for me to pull up a chair? And it said yes. So I went and grabbed a chair, pulled it up to the table. I said, this is your chair. You're welcome to sit here and join us. Got a very clear Class A thank you.
Yes, it was a real good night. I'll tell you, there was some real good responses from the Echo Vox.
So that's something to consider. Is treat them with respect, and they'll respond to you much better. And put positivity out there. Don't be afraid to joke with them.
Absolutely.
Do you remember that night when the EVP or the response we got coming through when I said when I asked, is it true that in the afterlife ghosts really have to wear sheets? And we got all the laughter coming through the Echo Vox.
Yes, I do. That was pretty funny.
So have fun with it. Bring a positive atmosphere to the investigation. That will get you more results. The old saying is true. You will draw more flies with honey than you will with vinegar. So always do that.
Absolutely.
Always be respectful. Always be careful.
Right.
And when you do capture things on photo or video, always try to look at the natural approaches first. Always try to
approach things as a skeptic.
Yes. Always
you have to consider all possibilities before you actually put it out there as evidence.
Definitely. And if if you can't find any type of link to it to say that this is okay, this is completely unexplainable, then it's probably not the best thing to present. If you're out
Exactly.
there,
Yes.
if you're and use common sense. If you're a smoker, don't smoke while you're investigating. Every picture that you take is going to have a blue mist in it.
Right. I know.
And
oh man,
if if you're going to be taking EVPs, don't wear something that jingles. Don't wear polyester.
Right.
We were having
and mark in your recording where someone is whispering in the background, so that way you're not sitting there listening to 10 seconds of a 45-minute recording for 20 minutes figuring out actually that was one of our investigators talking in the background.
Right. And for the record, polyester pants make for a very good get out EVP.
Contaminated.
So, but anyway, I'm looking at it and wow, it's
boy, that hour flew right by, didn't it?
yeah, we're sitting here out of time, and I could sit here and go for another hour, but I don't think the programming would quite allow for
You know,
it.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind it a bit. Let's just keep going.
Right, let's do it. Well,
Always ask for forgiveness.
right. No, I hope everyone has picked up some useful information tonight and has got something that they can use from it.
I hope so too. I enjoyed being on tonight and hopefully making someone else's investigation a little better.
Right, and something that I will say is, if you can't get permission to investigate somewhere before you trespass or before you put yourself in a potentially dangerous or risky situation, always look for public events. There are plenty of historical locations, plenty of notoriously haunted locations that host public events all year long,
Absolutely.
and
Great point.
and they come out of the woodwork for Halloween, and they are more than glad to take you through there, and they will let you bring your own equipment. Some of them will even furnish equipment for you to use when you go through the tour. It's a great
Absolutely.
experience, and you will get in much better places that way.
Yes.
So that's
A
something to
lot
consider.
better activity, a lot more activity than you will find in a lot of cemeteries and old abandoned buildings.
Absolutely. And I will say this to any paranormal teams who are listening to the show: if you have a public event going on, feel free to post a link to it on the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal Team's Facebook page. We'll be glad to share that and post that event for you.
Absolutely. See if we can get you some turnout.
Definitely, we'll be glad to send people your way and help you out that way, and give these people somewhere to go. So, with that being said, thank you for listening, everyone. We hope you have a good night and happy hauntings.
Thank you for listening to Paranormalities and Ponderings with the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal Team, brought to you by the Paranormal King Radio Network. We hope you enjoyed the show, and will tune in again next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please be safe as you're out there, especially if you're investigating the paranormal. Take care, have a good night, and happy huntings. Thank you again from the C.A.S.P.I.R Paranormal.